Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on this webinar. I am Barry Wiggins. I currently work in the SMS Network Operations Centre and have been with the company in a variety of roles for nearly 15 years. I am the holder of a long list of Microsoft Server and messaging certifications spanning back as far as Windows and Exchange Server 2003 and covering all versions of both on-premise and cloud-based server technologies since. The subject of today's webinar is a basic overview of the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. It will be in the form of a brief presentation, followed, time permitting, by a short question and answer session. Next slide, please. Apologies for those who have seen this slide on past presentations. I'll keep it brief. We see our role as one of helping and informing our customers on all areas of cloud services, whether that be stepping you through functionality you already have, providing solutions where we are able to when the tools you need are not readily available, or helping you manage spam and ensuring mail you send is deliverable. And it goes without saying that for the products we do sell, we are always on hand to help you set up and support your staff to keep them operational. Next slide, please. In the following slides, I'm going to cover off at a high level what their 365 Admin Center is for, how you gain access to it, what is a user and how you create one, what a license is for and how you assign them, and what the purposes of groups are, and a quick look at password changes. Next slide, please. Admin Center is a centralized management interface for a Microsoft 365 tenant organization. Within this interface, Microsoft have brought together all of the key functions that any admin would need access to on a daily basis. This includes user and group management, license assignment, domain and user password management. It also provides a convenient access point to the admin panels for such services as Exchange Online and Teams, in which the more advanced features and settings changes that may only ever need touching once can be made. For those who have not seen what the interface looks like before, here it is. Next slide, please. The prerequisite to gaining access to the Admin Center is that your user account for 365 must be granted one or more of the built-in admin roles. The first user account created when the tenant is initially set up is always granted the global admin role. It is recommended best practice that this user account is kept purely for gaining access when no one else can, and that it not be assigned any licenses. Additional users can be granted that same role, giving them full access to everything, including changing another global admin's password. Other admin roles can be assigned to users in the tenant for such tasks as end user password changes, managing licenses, reviewing security reports, and the list is extensive and beyond what can be covered in this short session. The Admin Center has its own direct access URL shown on screen. Or if you have a role that enables it via the admin app link found on the 9 dots menu, usually at the top left of any Office 365 page you are logged into, like this. Next slide, please. As the slide says, a user is an object representing a person that can be assigned access rights to other objects, such as files in a folder or an application. What this means in practice is that a created user, if not licensed, will be able to log into Office 365, but not be able to do an awful lot unless, for example, they are granted an admin role or are granted rights to access a folder of files stored on an Azure resource. A user account, or indeed any object, a group for example, needs to have a unique identifier within the tenant. This is usually in the form of a name. In Office 365, a user account requires a display name, which does not have to be unique and is usually formed by joining the first and last name entered for the user. However, the display name can also be different. The unique identifier for a user is actually its user principal name in the form of an email address, which is used to distinguish the user and is also used as the login credential. As stated above, a user can be created that is not licensed. Next slide, please. Let's move on to creating a user. So in Admin Center, mouse click please. Expand users, click active users, and then add a user. Mouse click please. Fill in the required fields. So for basics, that's display name, username, and password options. And we'll cover passwords later. We'll note on screen that in this instance, first name and last name have been automatically joined to create the display name. You can overwrite the display name to something else. Again, the username has to be unique in the organization. And as you can see, it's in the form of an email address. Next, please. For product licenses, select the location, and this is mandatory. And for guidance, this is meant to be the location the license will be used in and dictates where a user's saved files and data are stored in Microsoft's infrastructure. For the vast majority of our customers, this will be United Kingdom. Select the license you want to assign to this user or not. Next, please. In optional settings, you can leave the user as just a user, as seen here, or you can grant them one or more of the admin roles, a discussion of which would need an hour in itself. On this same tab, you can also fill in optional street address and contact number details, job description, and other profile information as you see fit. Next, please. Again, you review and finish the changes and you're done. Next slide, please. Licenses are the means by which users are granted usage rights for things like Exchange Online, for a mailbox, Teams, Office 365 as either online only or a downloadable copy, for example. Microsoft offer licenses in multiple hierarchies, starting from the most basic Exchange Online kiosk, which is just a mailbox you can access via the web page, right up to high-end licenses that can include full application access, security and mobile device management bolt-ons, Azure Active Directory access rights, and plethora of other options. And of course, there are other standalone licenses for Project, Visio, Dynamics, and many other applications. Our sales team will be more than happy to discuss license options with you at any time. Next slide, please. So, assigning a user a license on creation, we've already covered. However, if you need to license a user who's not already been licensed or change a license allocation, the process is pretty well the same. So, mouse click, please. If you select the user by ticking in the little circle to the left of the name, and be careful, as you can see, because of there is not a constraint on display names having to be unique. You need to be careful you select the right user to license. So tick the circle. Next. And that opens up their profile page. You then click on the Licenses and Apps tab. Again, select a location, select the license type, and save changes. Next, please. And there's the license assigned, and it's as simple as that. When I'm usually managing a large tenant with a lot of users and a lot of licenses, what I like to do is create a custom filter. Now, what this enables me to do is create lists of people who all have the same license type, or as you can see on screen, that are also in a specific domain or at a location, department, city, etc. And you can make that as fine-grained as you want within the limits of the parameters given you. So that's a really useful tool to report on, say, you know, Plan 1 users in the accounts department in the UK. And that's about all that we need to say about that. So next slide, please. So groups are, at the most basic level, a container of users that have common needs and they come in 4 variants. Mouse click, please. So on screen, we can see the 4 types. So, for example, as you can see, a security group is used with OneDrive or SharePoint to lock down file access and can also help with mobile device management. Similarly, a distribution group is used to deliver email sent to a generic address such as sales@ to a group of people. Mouse click, please. When creating a group, again, we need to step through, and the basics are the group needs a name, and that has to be unique within the organization. Next, please. You must assign an owner to a group. An owner of a group is granted rights to manage the membership of the group. Next, please. Optionally, you can add members at this stage. Now, as an admin, you may want to delegate that down to the person that you've just assigned as the owner of the group to do. So, for example, you might create a board members group and let one of the directors of the board assign the other members to it. Next, please. And finally, settings. A group has an email address. And that's important. And again, that has to be unique within the tenant. There's a privacy option, public or private. Public means that anybody can join or leave the group, and private means that only the owner can assign members to and remove users from the group. Again, if the owner has a license for Teams, then you can create a team for that group as well. Next, please. So now we come to changing passwords. For a lot of people, this sounds quite daunting. It's actually quite a simple process for an admin once you're in the admin center. So password resets for users can be done via the reset password link in an active user. Mouse click, please. That's underlined there. Or mouse click, please. If you select the user from the active users list, you'll see a little key icon appear to the right of the name, and clicking on that, or even the reset password list from the previous display, gives you this screen. Now on here, the default option would be to automatically create a password. I've deselected that on this occasion so that you can see the effect of that, which is to allow you to create a password of your own. Note the requirements for a strong password. Have to be 8 to 256 characters, and 256 characters is a bit too long. We recommend anywhere between 8 and 12 characters, and contain at least 3 of uppercase, lowercase numbers and symbols. In either case, whether you've automatically created or assigned your own password, the next 2 options down are optional. The first one is requiring the users to change password when they first sign in. Again, this may or may not be of use to you. Depends how secure you want your environment. You can also have the sign-in info, including the new password sent to an email address. It can be yourself, and it fills in the account that you're logged in with, or you can send it to somebody else. Next, please. Finally, for more advanced options around passwords, can I have a mouse click, please? If you back in the admin center under setup, and I've just highlighted one of the options down there, there are options around setting password expiration settings. Now, by default, they're set to every 90 days. Well, Microsoft have started to increase that to 720 days. And you can also enable users to reset their own passwords to save you any admin overhead. And there's also options to enable multi-factor authentication should you need it. And you can find links to where and how those are set and consequences thereof in this setup area of the admin center. Next slide, please. Now that concludes the brief presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'll start at the top. Okay, I've got a question here from Mike from Manchester who'd like, there is an SMS control panel and in my portal and now this Microsoft one. Which one is best to use, please? What I would say is that the SMS control panel in the portal is a piece of middleware that we have to use to enable our billing system to talk to Microsoft. And whilst it does have a lot of this functionality built into it, it is subject to change. And obviously at some point in time, we may decide that we need to replace that. The Microsoft one is the official supported one and is the one that you'll find in all the documentation everywhere on the web. And the best one to use is therefore this Microsoft 365 one, although of course you can still use our SMS control panel. Next question. So Chris asks, can you buy licenses in this admin portal or do I have to phone in? Thanks. Well, actually, because we're a CSP and we are billed directly from Microsoft, if you want billing to come from us, then we have to process the license purchase for you. Whether you have to phone in, well, if you log into our billing portal, then there is the functionality in there for you to add additional licenses, and that will go through that piece of middleware that I mentioned in the answer to the previous question. Should there be problems, then of course we are contactable via phone and email, and our sales team will be happy to help. Our next question is, can I search for emails sent and do reporting from here? And this is from a mic. Well, excuse me. In this specific portal, no. However, as I said in the presentation, there are links to the Exchange Admin Center and also Security and Compliance Center, in which you can do searching of emails, and it's quite fine-grained. You can search for a specific mail or all mail sent to and from specific users. We can send you links to where you do all that on email if you'd like that. Another question I've got from Anne from Warrington asks, every time I try to change the password to something I know, I can only change it to a random one that the portal makes. How are you getting to a page that lets you type it? Well, as hopefully I've shown you, in the admin center, you can actually choose not to have an automatically created password and to set one of your own, subject to the password strength requirements. It was on the previous to one slide from this. I have another Chris asking, I have logged into this new portal and I see an unknown user called something like admin svc at. I haven't made this. Should I be worried? I can absolutely assure you should not be worried about this. As I explained in the presentation, the default global administrator account that is created should only ever be used in dire emergency when nobody else can log into the portal. In order for us to manage your tenant, we have to have a global administrator account in the tenant for us to use. That account we always standardize with a name of, as stated, admin svc at, and then your tenant name, and that is our account for use to help you with your tenant problems. And finally, I've got an Anne asking, if someone leaves my business, do I delete this user in this portal? Is there anything else for me to do? So actually, yes, you can delete this user in this portal. And if they've got a mailbox, what's happening with the mailbox is it will be flagged as marked for deletion and it will be automatically removed in 30 days, which means that within 30 days, if you delete a user, you could still recover the contents of a mailbox, or indeed files from OneDrive or files in SharePoint that may have been deleted on removal of that user. So yeah, there is absolutely no reason for you not to be doing that, and removing them, there's nothing else for you to do. And I believe that is all of the questions that we've got. Are there any more out there? No, that's great. So that concludes the presentation, and I'd like to thank Martin for pressing the buttons for me, and Keith for moderating and keeping track of the questions as they arose through the event. So, and just to wrap up, as you can see, we've been in the business since 2006. Everything we do is cloud-based. Our entire technical and support team are based in the UK, and we consume the exact same products that we sell. So every member of staff has direct experience in solving your problems, no matter the scale. And during these difficult times, we're always available and happy to listen and, where possible, to help. Next slide, please. Our contact information and a link to our YouTube channel, where this and our other webinars can be found, are on screen. And thank you all again for your time today.